We have two major breaking stories that are unfolding in the world of politics that involve these two names on the screen, two of the biggest names in the race for the White House. At this hour, we are learning that Hillary Clinton did indeed sign a non-disclosure agreement back in 2009, which clearly laid out the penalties for disclosing classified information. And Ben Carson is explaining. We have brand new news about Ben Carson. This in relation to Politico's report that Carson's team admitted that his inspirational story of getting a scholarship to West Point and meeting with General William Westmoreland was a total fabrication. But Bill O'Reilly has just gotten a response from Ben Carson. We have that sound right now. Here's Ben Carson's response to the allegations on the O'Reilly factor, which will air tonight. Listen.
You were never formally offered any kind of accommodation to West Point. Is that correct?
Right. I was just told that it would be very easy for me.
Okay. So that should have been a little clearer on page 57 of your book, correct?
I guess it could have been more clarified. I told it as I understood it.
The full interview with Dr. Ben Carson airs tonight at 8 p.m. on the O'Reilly Factor. But let's bring in Ed Rollins, a Fox News political analyst and former principal White House advisor to President Reagan, along with Julie Roginsky, a Fox News contributor. This story is changing moment by moment, but it appears that Dr. Ben Carson at least fudged in a book he wrote this year. This is not some old story, correct? That he was offered some scholarship which didn't exist.
What I don't understand is, and he's not the first person to ever do this, but he has an extraordinary story in and of itself. He doesn't have to fabricate any more than Brian Williams needed to fabricate when he was the anchor on NBC. But somehow, in my long history of politics, I've seen guys exaggerate their military records, say they were in Vietnam when they weren't. It all comes back to haunt them. And Ben Carson, who is very supported by the evangelical community, now is going to get scrutinized. And I'm sure if this, as dramatic as this statement was in his book, there are other things that probably aren't truthful, and they're going to go look for him.
Well,
how you can say, I had dinner with Westmoreland, and Westmoreland said I'd have no problem getting into West Point. Any kid that ever tried to get into West Point, it's not easy. You have to have congressional sponsorship, what have you. He obviously fabricated this, and it's going to come back to haunt him, and they're going to find that Westmoreland didn't have dinner with him or some other thing. But the problem is he's now going to get scrutinized, and his integrity, which has been so important to making him a viable candidate, is going to get challenged very seriously.
Julie, this personal narrative that isn't quite on point. Bill was kind to him there, at least what we've heard, but the whole interview will air on the O'Reilly Factor tonight. This does lead to major questions. Does it hurt his campaign?
Of course it does. And what is so astounding to me, and Ed knows this is better than anybody else, is when you start running for office, the first thing you do, or you should do, is do self-research, right? So your team should vet everything that you have said to make sure, or will say, to make sure it comports with reality. The fact that this book was allowed to be published without anybody in his team vetting the facts is absolutely an abdication of responsibility on the part of his campaign staff. Never mind the fact that Ed is absolutely right. There's no reason for him to embellish. He has an amazing life story. Why talk about West Point?
Well, exactly. He's a brilliant neurosurgeon who was such a success. You know, the kid who was in the ROTC. But Ed, I look at this and I say, wait a minute. He also said he had dinner with William Westmoreland. Believe it or not, in 1969, they kept records of this. And the record shows William Westmoreland was not in Detroit on Memorial Day weekend. He was playing golf in D.C.
Well, it'll be more. I mean, the bottom line is I'm sure when he wrote this book, he didn't think anyone was going to check. Obviously, they have checked. They're going to check every element of it today. He's now a front runner, one of the front runners in the Republican Party. Everything in his life is going to be scrutinized. And again, I go back to the tragedy of a man who has an extraordinary record. Is now basically getting every word, everything he ever did, every misstatement, and there are many misstatements. And my sense is he now has a glass jaw and could crumble very quickly.
Well, and then, of course, people will blame the media. But sorry, the media vetted him better than his own people did.
The difference with him as opposed, Trump could say something like this and get away with it. He has built his campaign on the fact that he's a man of integrity and he's honest and different, and that evangelical community has supported him overwhelmingly.
I'd love to continue this vein, but we need to get to the breaking story about Hillary Clinton and the fact that she has indeed signed, at least they found, a 2009 non-disclosure agreement that says you cannot negligently utilize or let any of your important documents be out there. And now that paired with the server story. Julie? What do you think?
It continues to be a problem for her, and again, much like we just talked about, continues to be a self-inflicted problem for her. For the life of me, don't understand why she went down this road in the first place, other than this insane obsession with being able to control information about herself and information flow. But look, when you're in public office, the information that you conduct as a public servant is in the public domain. Why she continued to do this, I don't know. To me, it's all part and parcel. I don't know what this agreement says. I don't know what the legality of it is.
Judge Napolitano said that signing this and then violating it could be punishable by 20 years in prison. I mean, does it get to that?
Oh, she's not going to go to prison, but I think certainly this can be a very serious issue in the campaign. It's a matter of integrity again, and obviously the difference in her and Carson is 60% of the country don't think she's honest. This just reinforces that. Carson, they thought, was honest, and now they find he's not honest.
That's true. I mean, her dishonesty, if you will, is baked in. His is not yet, and that's the difference, right?
So this story, both of them developing as we speak. We'll keep everybody posted. Ed, Julie, thank you so much.